So this is RStudio. This is what RStudio window looks like and when you run the program. So in this window, we have different panes in the window. So we have a pane here, which is called the console pane. This pane is where all commands for RStudio are executed. So when we execute an RStudio command, you'll see it being worked in this console. We also have a pane over here, which is the environment. This is where we'll see our data sets. We'll see information being here. Some other things you can do, but for the basics, this is really where you want to stay is in this environment. Down here is another pane. This is known as the files pane. It also has your plots, packages. RStudio is an open source processing um, package or word open source computer language. And so people have written packages to make things easier for them. So there's different packages we can turn on and off that you can load into here. We have a help way if you can do some searches on things and some other places, other tabs you can use. In the Files tab, your Files tab will look like this. There'll be nothing in there. I actually have lots of things in mind. So if I go back to my home, this is what mine looks like when I have lots of different folders I've created. I'm going to go into a folder here and into another folder, and these files are what we call RMD files. If I'm going to open one up, so let's say I open up the RStudio basic RMD file, .rmd. RMD stands for a R markdown file. So this is what it looks, and notice when we did that, when we opened it, it created another pane here with all your files will be here. So we have in every RMD file, you have this part here called a title. YAML is actually what it's called, and you'll have in here your title. You can also have your author. You can also have your output that you want to create from this. These gray sections are what are called R chunks. So this little R chunk is what's known as a gray section. It will run commands. It will actually tell RStudio to run certain commands. You will see them get run down here in the console. So if I actually were to run this one, they will run a library. It'll turn on the library called NHanes. It'll turn on the library called Mosaic. I can also turn them on, go here to packages, type in here in the search menu for NHanes, and then I can click on the little box next to it and it will run it. I can also just type library NHanes in the console and it will load that package also. So there's 3 different ways I can actually load that and get my packages up there. We're going to do it here in our RMD file. To run anything in the RMD file, I just click on this little green arrow here. It will run it. There's other ways to also run, but this one will run it. It looks like nothing actually happened, but if you look down here, you're going to see it's running some things, some commands down here in my console. So it's actually running these commands here. So there's our RStudio, there's our packages. If you're using the RMD file, you would put your packages in this setup R command, R chunk. You'd put them there so that knows that that's where you're going to put them. You can just type them, but again, noticing you're typing library, and then inside here, you can type in the name of the package. Notice one time I typed it in quotes, one time I did not. There doesn't seem to be a really good reason why you have to do one or the other. Um, so now that we have this RMD file opened up and we've opened up our packages and we've run them, again, you can also run them down here in your console or click on the box next to them. If you're not using an RMD file, then all the commands you're going to type in this console pane, and you just type them in and you can use them. One thing I should mention is when you type a command, if I were to type like library, and I'm going to do just create a new library, I'm going to type in, I'm going to start a new package. I'll just put any of these. I'll do the ARM one just because. And then I can hit enter. It will run that. And let's say I typed it wrong, so I can hit the up arrow and it'll bring back the last command that was run. I keep eating up arrows and it'll bring back previous up arrows I did. So it'll come back all the commands I've run up to that point. You hit the down arrow and go back down through them also. All right, so if you're using an RMD file, which I highly suggest, then we want to insert an R chunk. And so you can do them down here in the console, but that means I can't re-access them again. So if I come in here, I can insert an R chunk. And the way I insert an R chunk is, I like to hit lots of spaces. I like to have lots of spaces in mind to give myself some space here. And then up here in this toolbar, you're going to find a bunch of different things we can run. And the one we want is this, looks like a little C with an arrow next to it. If you click on that, you'll see different things you can do. I want to do an R chunk. You can also do a Python chunk, an SQL chunk. But I want an R chunk, so I'm insert an R chunk. Notice it put in this little gray space. It's got this little R here. Just to show you the difference, I'm going to do a Python chunk. If I do a Python chunk, notice it now says Python in there instead of R. So this tells the computer which language you want it to use. So I don't want a Python, but that's how it tells it is what's inside these little curly brackets. So this is my R chunk. Notice it's gray. I can now type in what I need to, and it will run this. The advantage of using an RMD file is that it actually lets you go back and edit those chunks. If I do them down here in the console, I have to hit the up arrow to go back, or I have to go up in here, find the command, and then copy and paste it. But here, I just want to be able to, I can update them as I go. So it's kind of a nice feature. I can also type in here, up here, I'm not going to type a new one in, but up here, I wanted to run this one and I ran the whole thing by hitting the green arrow. I can also be on the line I want to run and hit the command return or the control return enter, and it will then run that same one for me. Notice it's now running that again. So if I just want to run one line, I can do that. Okay, so now that we've done that, the one thing I want to mention is that R is very case sensitive, so do watch that. It is important to be so you look at that. So pay attention to how you type the names and how they will be running and what they're doing. So make sure that you pay attention to that. If you type the word mean with a capital M, it's very different than typing the word mean with a small m. Same thing happens with data sets. If you have a variable that's called weight with a capital W, then you must type that capital W weight. Otherwise, it's going to say it can't find it. So it's very case sensitive. It's reading exactly what you tell it. Computers are not smart. They will base it on what you actually type. In this course, we're going to be using a lot of R commands. Our R commands, the structure is almost all the commands we do in this class are going to be, you're going to have some command you're going to do, whether it's a graph or a inference test or descriptive statistics. You're going to start with that command. It is basically a function, so you do use function notation. That's why the parenthesis is there. Then we're going to have our response variable. This tilde, which kind of means is related to. So that response variable is related to the explanatory variable. I have the underscores here because variables can't have spaces in them. So you're going to see me use these underscores to kind of give a space so it's more readable, but not actually put a space in there. And then you're going to tell it where it is. We're going to have lots of different things in our environment. So you then tell it what data frame we're using. So data equals and then the name of the data frame. Notice you're going to replace your response variable, your explanatory variable, your data frame with what they actually are for the commands you have. There's also this ... That means there are other things you can do that will make it prettier or give it more definition or other procedures like that. We aren't necessarily going to be doing things just right now, but that's what that ... means is there are other things you can do. One little random RStudio command I wanted to point out is that you can copy any command and paste it. So you can do a Control C or Command C on a Mac, and then you can paste it with Control V and Command V. The symbol percent greater than percent, or the symbol vertical line greater than symbol can be thought of as and then. It allows you to use this code as a line in the next line. So it actually basically says everything in this line is going to be used in the next line. It's useful to string these things together and make them more readable. It is also useful for creating visualizations that contain multiple graphs. So this is known as a piping symbol. It's either the percent greater than percent. Now we have in the base R, we now have the greater than the vertical line and the greater than symbol. Both can be used pretty much interchangeably. And then the last thing we can do is we can render an RMD file. Rendering means that you want to share this with other people, but you don't want to share the RMD file. You want to share it as an HTML or Word or PDF. PDF has some issues, so I would highly suggest you kind of use the Word file instead. And then if you wanted the PDF file, export to Word and then open it in Word and then export it to a PDF file. And you're going to notice up here in my R chunk, my setup R chunk, I have this knit-R, this information after this. This is what also tells it I want to knit it. And that needs to be in every one of those setup R chunks. I said in every R chunk, but I actually mean in just every setup R chunk. You don't want it in every R chunk. To knit the file, you're going to click on the words knit. So up here in this toolbar, you're going to see you have the word knit. You can also see in this toolbar, by the way, that you can look at it as source or visual. You can put in bold and italicized. You can change it from if you want it to have headings of any kind, you can put in different things here. You can insert things, tables, and so forth. So there's a lot of pieces in here, especially when you're in the visual one. In the source, not so much, but sometimes you need to go to the source. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the words knit. If I just click on the words knit, it will run it as the default that I've set it as. Going back up here to my YAML, my default is an HTML document. If I don't want it to do it that way, I can actually click on the arrow next to the word knit, and I can now knit to what I'd like. I can also set my knit directory to be different places. I want it to actually be my document directory. You can set it to other things, but it's better to go with your document directory in most cases. Let's go ahead and knit it to a Word document. It will then do some pieces. It's processing the file. And it's doing some work here. Maybe I can show what's happening here. I think it downloaded it. Go back to our files. And now you can see that there is a RStudio basic doc file. That means it's actually rendered this as an RStudio file. And I now have access to that file. If I want to also knit, if I just click on it, it will knit to an HTML, and then we'll knit to that. And then it opens it up as an HTML document.